This is Jordan Edwards, and this is the Business Jiu-Jitsu Podcast.
How you doing, Rich?
Great, Jordan. How are you?
Very good. Thanks for doing this.
For sure.
Yeah. Let me set this up for the people that are joining in to watch the Business Jiu-Jitsu journey. So Business Jiu-Jitsu is a book that I'm writing. It's about the shared principles between business and martial arts. You're a very successful business person. You've been successful in the business world, but also in the Jiu-Jitsu world as a black belt. How did you get started?
Well, I think I'm a little more successful, in the business world. How did I get started in business, or how did I get started in Jiu-Jitsu? After college, I was lucky enough to get into business school straight away and got sort of that 2-year business degree out of the way. I didn't know anything when I showed up in business school. There's a reason why schools now want 3, 4, 5 years of experience. It's much more fulfilling, I'm sure, if I had had that. But I was in a rush, Jordan. Yeah. I just wanted to get out there and make my mark. And my first job was in Chicago, because I went to school out in Chicago, grad school. And I was an equity sales trader for Merrill Lynch in the Sears Tower, which is not even called the Sears Tower anymore. 5,500 was the Sears Tower. You know, when the winds came in Chicago, the Windy City, you'd just feel the building sway. Yeah. But other than that, that was my first real crack at Wall Street.
Yeah, that's great. You, on your bio at least, it says that you were a risk analyst.
No, I was not a risk
analyst. For now, so
I was a credit analyst.
Credit.
Yeah. So, the trajectory of my career was I started in that job as an listed equity sales trader at Merrill in Chicago. So I went through the training program in New York, then got shipped back to Chicago. Yeah. Worked there for about a year and a half, and then came back to New York to be one of the founding members of the Merrill Lynch High Yield Research Department. Yeah. It was a brand new department, junk bonds. Mm-hmm. And
this is in the 80s?
This is 1988. Right before there was a financial crisis back then. Yeah. This is 1987, actually. Right. No, I'm sorry. This is 1980. Yeah, just like the end of 86, beginning of 87. And it made a lot of sense for me because you said a credit analyst, not a risk analyst, but I guess you're a risk analyst when you're analyzing credit. Right. I had been trained in Chicago to be a sales trader, a salesman and a trader, meaning you're selling the firm's ideas, the firm's new deals. It's really other people's stuff, right? And you're trading the same thing. The fresh start for me to move back to New York and then B, start in such an exciting department like high yield bonds was to be a research analyst. So the ideas were mine. I was selling my own original creations. Yeah. I'd look up and down companies, up and down balance sheets, and I'd make my own, judgments. And that was so much more worthwhile than just regurgitating, Merrill's army of analysts and what they were saying today. Right. So, that's what really taught me the business.
Right. You ever come across the show Billions? Your professor, John Danaher, was on that show?
Yeah, I only Googled YouTube the scenes where John was in, but other than that, I haven't seen.
Well, they used jiu-jitsu as a metaphor to mirror the things that were going on in the business. Yeah. And in your profession, when you're constantly measuring risk, right? You're the CEO or the president of a REIT.
I'm president of Benefit Street Partners, which is alternative asset manager, of which, yes, you're right, I'm president of our public, non-traded but publicly filing REIT and BBC, and a couple of other things, constantly looking at risk.
Yeah, well, the reason I asked this is because this is one of the things that I struggled with the most in my career, which was pushing myself to take more risk, go out there, and I found that jiu-jitsu was an incredible antidote to teach me the lessons on the mat. When I was coming up, and I've been doing jiu-jitsu for 11 years, I had some blue belt blues, and I wanted to get through that. And one of the things that I had to learn was I couldn't always be so guarded. I had to let myself open up and take these risks in order to get better. Yeah. That started to mirror as I grew my career, and I needed to take on more risk. I was going out and doing commercial real estate transactions, putting together syndicated deals, and the only way to do that was to expose myself, become very vulnerable, and go out and raise money. Right. So, are there any parallels that you see?
Yeah, well, I'm sort of the wrong person by profession to ask that question to, because as a credit analyst, think of it, we're making loans or we're investing in bonds, whether it's a real estate loan or a commercial corporate loan or a bond. We're investing in something generally at around 100, maybe you get a little discount, 99, 99 and a half. And if everything goes well, you'll get your stated coupon or your interest rate, for however long the bond is. And then whether it calls early or matures, you're just hoping to get your 100 back at maturity. So since these bonds or loans are generally callable, you have maybe a few points of upside.
Yeah.
And you have literally, Jordan, 100 points of downside. So the way we think of the business at our firm is like, what could go wrong? Let's just analyze every known fact so we can avoid, because one wrong one will offset a lot of right ones. So that's the opposite approach that you're talking about maybe.
Yeah.
But having said that, I think the other ethos of our firm and the way we operate is you tend to make better decisions when you have all available information, right?
Right.
So being well prepared, I think that's the metaphor, because when you're prepared and when you know more than the other guy, isn't that sort of what Jiu-Jitsu is about?
Yep. Then
you can see things maybe that they don't, and then you're not so much taking risks. You're just doing logical steps that would be the logical progression in the course of a deal, in the course of anything, but in the course of jiu-jitsu. Is it risky to go from mount to an armbar? I suppose. But if you drilled that 10,000 times, then maybe that's just, you're not even thinking.
Yeah.
So I think of it as the same way. If you come well prepared and you've done more work than the other guy, hopefully you've set yourself up, as they say. It was funny how much luckier I got the more well prepared I was.
That's a very good point, and a perfect segue to the next thing I want to talk to you about. So we met here at Hampton's Jiu-Jitsu. I saw that you were just starting KASAI around that time, and you are so generous with your time to come here, and you teach on the weekends. You teach during the week at your academy in New York City, Mushin. And one of the things that is impressed me so much is your command of the fundamentals. You seem to be obsessed, and I don't want to put these words in your mouth, but with the nuanced details of this sport.
Yeah.
Can you talk about it?
Sure. Well, I got a good grounding. My first jiu-jitsu professor was John Danaher.
Yeah.
For my first 3 or 3.5 years, I trained exclusively with John.
Yep.
I think that was way more than I needed. I needed to do a lot of remedial stuff before I got to the John level. But still, he instilled in me, well, let's put it this way. John weighed at the time, I don't know how much he weighs now, 180, 185 pounds.
Yeah.
He, when he got on me,
Yep.
I never felt anything like that in my life. And I would say that, sometimes I would say to him, John, do you weigh 300 pounds? And he'd say, no, it's about proper positioning, proper technique. And then sometimes when we would have, you'd have a Kimura, or you'd have, some kind of American lock, or some kind of position on me, it would be so much different than when anybody else had it. It was just like I was immovable, just like it was in the mount.
Yeah.
And then instead of saying, John, do you weigh 300 pounds? I would say, John, can you lift 1,000 pounds? Because you're literally the strongest man I've ever.
Yeah.
And it, as so happens, John was a power lifter in his,
right.
or a bodybuilder in his earlier days.
Yeah.
So without a doubt, he is a very strong individual. But he was correct. It was about having proper leverage, having proper positioning, and having proper technique.
Yes.
And Jordan, I'm definitely not the biggest guy in the gym. I'm
Yeah.
definitely not the youngest guy in the gym.
No.
I'm definitely not the strongest guy in the gym.
Yeah.
So the only place
I think you might be the one that shows up the most, though.
Yeah. Well, I try to be the hardest working,
Yeah.
but because where's the edge for me? And then even if you are the biggest guy, clearly you want the edge anyway. Where's the edge? Is in knowing more than your opponent, like I said earlier about being prepared. But when you apply, giving that example before, Kimura correctly, that's a tap. That's not let me see if I can hitchhike my way out of that or something.
Right.
That should be, you should really, know the subtleties. John's wedge system, I just think about to this day. And as you advance, they always say you get to your black belt, so then you can start branching out and developing sort of your own game.
Right.
And for me, it was very true. I train day to day. I know you didn't ask me this question, but I train day to day, not day to day, once every other week or so, with Paulo Miao. And I train also whenever I can get him, probably a similar interval, with Eddie Cummings.
Right.
Why do I pick those two guys? Well, first of all, I guess I could you could pay it. And New York's a great place. There's a lot of people you can train with, and I do. And I certainly do. But the reason that I train with them is because I think in the world, I think most people would probably put Paulo in a very small group of people who are sort of the best berimbolo players in the world.
Yes.
And Eddie is one of the best leg lock players in the world. As it happens, Paulo is so much more than a berimbolo player, and his top game is now devastatingly good. His whole game is, as is Eddie's. But you know, I focus a lot of what I do with them on berimbolo and legs because I'm trying to bring in nexuses between those two. So when I teach a lesson, sometimes I'll plagiarize. I'll teach something straight out of Eddie's mouth or straight out of Paulo's mouth. Yeah. But usually what I will do is I will connect things from there, from, you know, things. Eric Owings is at Mushin is, you know, another brilliant guy that I've, you know, learned a lot from and has trained me over the years. Yeah. And, you know, the ability to connect these different, and Eric's style is even different than those two. Yeah. And just the ability to connect these things. And so like you say, getting tech just turns me on to know how to do things in the most devastating way possible. Yeah.
Your command of the nuanced details of the techniques that you teach is very, very impressive.
Yeah, well, a lot of people are more so. Yeah. I'm just, you know, a weekend warrior. I don't compete for a living. But, you know, there's something about not competing that, well, I mean, I have competed, but not competing on a regular grind schedule gives you, I think, the freedom to explore in your game. Like, you know, we'll spend weeks at a time, you know, we're on a technique now, I don't even have a name for it. Yeah. I call it a hook ashi cross leg. You know, I'll call it the Jordan. Okay. But we're developing all sorts of entries to there and finishes and segues into other positions. We can get there from K-guards, we get there from 50-50s, we're getting there from double guard pulls. Yeah.
Is that what you were working on today?
We were just, no, we were doing berimbolos today.
Oh, berimbolo, okay.
But yeah, there's a stop in this
I thought I saw you pull that in transition at the end of it. It was a very impressive
couldn't help myself, but yeah, we I just, you know, wanted to work on a little the move of the day.
Yeah. That's excellent.
Good.
So you started subbing under John Donahar, but you came together with Eric Owings. How did that partnership come together?
So I trained with John at Henzo's, and to this day I would be still training with John. It's one of the, nothing can compare to it. The problem was logistics. Right. One of the logistics was that John had to conclude his privates by time, I forgot, it was about 6 o'clock, or I think it was roughly 6 o'clock class started. Yeah. Or 6:30 maybe, but 5:30, 6, let's call it 6 o'clock. Or you can, which he didn't want to, you could do lessons after the last class was over, like 9:30 or 10. So I would literally have to come up with excuses to go disappear. You know, Henzo's is not that close. I'd get over there. It was they usually cleaned the mat after the class. So I was in the part where we still had a lot of mat residue on there from the morning. So it was not the glamour spot. We put some cones around us because inevitably we'd be running late and the class would be smashing around us. It was difficult. Right. It was difficult. And I was really only getting in an hour. But an hour with John, boy, that's like a 5-hour day.
I've only trained with him a few times, but he's the most effective communicator I've ever met across any discipline.
And he makes it fun.
Yeah.
He'll tell you stories that are hilarious.
Yes.
They'll somehow fit into the lesson plan and it'll just be a joy. But then, you know, I met Eric. I think Eric was pretty much one of John's top black belt students. This is, you know, pre the Gary Tonin and Gordon and stuff. Eric you know, was one of his top black belts. And so what I started to do was moonlighting with Eric. And Eric ended up buying an apartment with another guy, John Cholish, who I know you know, Jordan. And we split the apartment, and I did the 1/3 sort of help stipend them a little bit, but also because there was a loft upstairs, and I made it my room and just put all mats in there. And so we just made that our upstairs grappling loft. And we had that apartment for about 2 years. And anytime I could steal time, I'd come and I'd meet Eric or John. Yeah. And we would do lessons or just beat the crap out of each other upstairs. And it was dangerous because, like, there was a stairwell on the side. If you went rolling, you might actually fall down the stairs. Yeah. But it was so much fun. And Eric and I got into a nice routine. We always talked about opening a gym together, and eventually we did.
That's great. Yeah, I had a bunch of good friends that trained with you guys in the early days, Eitan Saperstein and some of those guys, and really good guys, and they always spoke highly, and they knew that I did jiu-jitsu out on Long Island with Sensei Nardu Debra, and we always chatted, and I didn't really know who Eric was. It turned out he was a training partner of my sensei, and it was come full circle. I meet you here, years later. And
but I'll tell you, Eric may have learned from John, but it's a good example. Well, Eric had a broader education maybe before that in Brazil. But Eric developed a style that, it's a very unique Eric style. It's a very dominant, positional control, very thoughtful. It feels, again, with Eric like he is, the strongest man in the world, because he can sort of just do things that just seem so heavy. But, just learning that from him, learning from the others that I've had the good fortune to train with, has given me a well-rounded game, and it's kept it interesting, Jordan. I think people tend to be good at the things they most enjoy doing. I think about that at work when we're, restructuring things and thinking about the right jobs for people. Same for me. I no longer I'm not sure if I ever did, the smash and, smash game, and, because there's always going to be a guy bigger or stronger, or, but, to the extent you can invent or, learn a new language. I found ourselves, we were training yesterday, we called it our secret roll club. Unfortunately, we weren't in town. And I caught myself in the middle, because these are somewhat regular students, a couple of the guys here that train with me, and I'm belting them now. And I found myself talking. I completed a sentence, and I caught myself just as I finished the sentence. And the sentence was something like, we get our, inside Senkaku, and then we go to Tapu Shiro, then we switch from Tapu Shiro back to the south, whatever. It was a sentence using words that seem like Martian language, and all the 4 or 5 guys in the room were following word for word, and then would even follow up with a question of, but what about the Kani Basami?
Yes.
And I'll be like, you understood what I was saying,
I witnessed that in action today, and I was so impressed. And I'm sitting there listening, and it's almost like you guys were speaking another language. Yeah.
Well, Eddie Bravo has done a good job of that, but he made up his language. I'm trying to use the language. And I actually, for lack of better terms, I will use the truck and some of Eddie's terminology too. But wherever possible, I'm going to follow John and use the Japanese.
Yes. That's
or the logical description of the move, as I said before, the hooked ashi with the cross, with the leg across. Yeah. If I can't come up with a name,
Berimbolo must be Portuguese, right?
Berimbolo is Portuguese. I think Berimbolo just means, I don't know, something like spinning and grabbing. I used to think De La Hiva was something like Berimbolo, and then spinning and...
It's a guy.
But it's a guy.
De La Hiva. Just like Joe D'Arce is the dart stroke.
So then I started thinking maybe there's a guy named Bob Berimbolo.
That's very, very possible. I interviewed Deborah Gracie last week, who's Neiman's sister. Yeah. And she just wrote a book called Respect, which is a Portuguese to English for Jiu-Jitsu dictionary, which I thought was a novel idea.
That's good.
She published it out, and it's
good.
Pretty cool.
Well, you need Japanese too. That's the problem. Absolutely. Like, for example, I met a woman. Her name was Kani Basami. Yeah. And I don't know if Kani Basami is an illegal move now in judo from the feet. Yes. But it's the back step that you fall into saddle or fall into an immediate heel up. Yeah. Or knee bar. And I took a picture of her because she was at a conference, and I took a picture of her with her name tag. Yeah.
That's very, very funny. So before we wrap up, I wanted to get into a little bit of KASAI.
Sure.
So you have an incredible passion for jiu-jitsu. And you took this passion, and now you've started a whole business. Now, business jiu-jitsu is not necessarily about the business of jiu-jitsu. It's about where the principles intersect. But you've created a business out of jiu-jitsu. Yeah. Is this purely passion project, or do you see the next 10 years jiu-jitsu exploding, and this could be a real, maybe even a competitor of the UFC or a feeder to the UFC? What's your business angle here?
I hope it's both. Right now, it's more of the former, because the jiu-jitsu market just isn't big enough yet. Yeah. One of our missions, the premise for why KASAI is, like you, I'm just a fan of the sport. I watch anything I can, that you can watch either in person or on TV. Anything from the the single promotions, single mat promotions to all the big IBJJF, ADCC,
yes,
all the big events. And I always watch it and always say, boy, this could be better. This could be better. This could be better. This could be better. And these are some great stuff that we're watching. But what I'm referring to is some of the complaints that the matches are not understandable.
Yes.
Some of the decisions sound somewhat arbitrary. People complain of favoritism, which I don't believe, but maybe once in a while that could happen. But trying to take those elements out of the sport and create more action.
Yeah.
Having two guys stand in a match and sort of play patty cake is not super interesting. And if you're going to get crossover into the sport of people like UFC wanting to watch the sport, you're going to have to make it interesting for them, and that's just not interesting.
Yes.
I mean, I'm a extreme fan of the sport, and I fast forward.
Yeah.
My finger.
I
have finger cramps sometimes from watching jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So at KASAI, we played with the rules. We did the best we could. We wanted to keep the point system intact.
Yeah.
Because we didn't want to build something that was so far away. Like, I so admire what Eddie Bravo did with EBI.
Yes, me too.
But unfortunately, one of the negative effects of it is he was unable, I think, to get some of the best, traditional rules players or gi players in the world to do it because, it was too unfamiliar to them.
Mm-hmm.
They'd get to mount and they get no points for it. It would only matter if you get so tried to keep something that was as true to the sport as we could, but we got rid of, for example, advantages. We added points instead of advantages.
Right.
The matches and tournaments are only 6 minutes. Refs are pretty vigilant about, pushing forth the action. We have a giant mat, so you're not just seeing guys constantly go out of bounds.
Right.
100 different things.
Yep.
And several of the other rules. And most importantly, in our tournaments, you can have ties. Because it's very frustrating, like I said, to see people get some decision that's unfulfilling ultimately,
right?
Or maybe even worse, having a tiebreaker, like a back control, riding time or something is unsatisfying.
Yes.
So came up with our set of rules and said, you know what, we can turn jiu-jitsu into a mainstream sport.
Right.
Now, the one thing that MMA has over jiu-jitsu is blood. Now, you get a cut on a jiu-jitsu once in a while, but I hate to say it, but people deny this. If you ask anybody, they will never admit this. But I still think to this day people go to UFC events because they want to see a train wreck.
Sure.
You're driving on the road.
Yeah.
You curse at everybody for rubbernecking at that car, but when it's your turn to go past, what are you going to do?
Yeah. And
if it's an accordion type accident, there's ambulances and there's stretchers.
Well,
don't tell me you're not going to look.
Yeah,
of course
everyone's looking.
And people want to be in the front row and get the guy's blood on them. A lot of people do at least. So we can't replicate that. So I think the pitch for jiu-jitsu and for KASAI is it's the intelligent man's martial art. It's the thinking man's or woman's martial art. And once you learn the sport and you understand some of the subtleties of it, it's like a chess game.
Yeah.
Think of action chess. So that's what gets exciting about it. But even like UFC, it frustrates jiu-jitsu fans like us, but guys will go to the ground, they'll be in a closed guard for 40 seconds and the ref will stand them up.
Yeah, there's been more and more of that.
Boring.
Yeah.
We're trying to get rid of the boring elements of jiu-jitsu for KASAI.
Yeah.
But
you guys have done a great job,
only
especially
so much
you're bringing so many different disciplines together. It seems like people want to fight on your promotion.
Yeah.
And you're getting the IBJJF guys, you're getting the guys that are doing no-gi.
Yeah.
So some of the exciting names in the sport.
Yep, and we're trying to get MMA guys as well.
Yeah.
And look what we're able to do though. Like in New York, in our venue, Manhattan Center, where we've been the last few New York shows, we're smashing in over 2,000 people into an arena to watch a single mat jiu-jitsu event.
Yeah.
Like in the ADCCs or Worlds, the place is full because most of the people in the arena are actually competing.
Right. And the
here, there's nobody competing. They're just people watching, other than the people backstage.
Yeah.
And to watch a single mat, the onus is on us to make sure that single mat is exciting.
Yes.
Because you'll really lose your crowd I almost think your show is only as good as your weakest match.
Yeah.
You know, and you throw 2 or 3 consecutive weak matches in there, and people are just going to go to the bar or head for the doors.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, it's on us to make sure the matches are compelling.
Yeah.
And the rules, you know, create that action.
There's some really exciting athletes in the sport right now. You know, like obviously the one everybody talks about is Gordon Ryan, but Renato Canuto, who fights on your promotion all the time. I mean, that guy's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, I think everybody wants to see a Renato and Gary Tonin go
Yeah.
again. I think KASAI is the place to make that happen.
Well,
for
we're working on it.
Yeah.
Gary's got a contract with ONE FC, his MMA promotion. So we have to kind of work around that and Hanato's schedule. But we'll get that figured out. There's a lot of other I mean, all we do all day long, Jordan, now that we kind of have the format figured out, and, you know, other than doing the blocking and tackling of getting the shows produced, is think all day long about dream matchups and try to convince the guys that they want to do the matchups that we think up.
I mean, that is.
I can't tell you how many times we'll call a guy and we'll say, I got the perfect match. He goes, no, I'll fight, but I'm not that guy. I'm like, no, you know, and so it's a lot of persuasion. You know, your persuasion skills need to fall into place.
Do you enjoy that part of it?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm blessed to have Hollis Gracie as my partner. Hollis, I call him 6 degrees of separation. There's nobody in the sport that he can't call and, you know, start off a phone call either in English or Portuguese.
He's a great guy. I only met him one time about 6 months ago.
Did you do the seminar here?
I actually did his seminar at Sarah's.
Okay.
And he had about 125 people on the mat, and he was controlling the room, and he's just such a wealth of knowledge. And I really appreciated that seminar.
Yeah, so Hollis is the connectivity point. But, you know, I always say there's nobody has a monopoly on good ideas. Yeah. So between our whole team and everybody we talk to, we're always trying to dream up the next, you know, cool matchup.
You've got a great team. Greg, who owns Hampton Jiu-Jitsu, is one of your social media coordinators.
Greg Melita, he is the social media coordinator.
He is.
Most people
incredible.
think we have like 100-person team or something. Our social media, forget social media. Our media and marketing department is run by Greg, and is only Greg.
He does a great job.
Yeah, he does the work of 20 people.
When there's a KASAI coming up, or it's the day of, the night before, your coverage is incredible. Yeah. You know, you feel like you're getting really excited to be a part of the show. Yeah. And Flow Grappling also.
Flow
what
does a great job also.
They're revolutionizing this entire sport, at least for me. Yeah. The way that they cover these events, I think it's better than ESPN.
So the answer to your first question is if we can keep that trajectory, the sport is growing. It's growing. You see it, you know, around the country. You know, in these strip malls or wherever. You know, kids. You know. And anytime a sport starts getting kids programs and they start growing, then they're going to, you know, then they'll tell their kids, and, you know, then it'll grow into something. So I think the number of participants in the sport is just going to constantly grow. The curve looks like this. So therefore, who's your built-in fan base? Yeah. Hopefully we can grow that fan base beyond the people that just do jiu-jitsu. Yes, that's on us. Yes. We continue to try to open up our venue, and we invite friends and friends of friends and people that don't have any background, and they love it. Yeah. You know, the story I always tell is my 2 daughters, 20 and 25. Yes. And they come to every KASAI show. My oldest just flew to Dallas with one of her friends. And they'll usually bring 1 to 5, 6 friends with them. And they will literally stay from the first undercard match at like 6 p.m. to the final match. You know, sometimes they don't end until midnight.
I'm very surprised to hear that and pleased. It's pretty cool.
So typically they'll sit in their seat for maybe they'll go to the bathroom or get a drink or something, or some food. But they will sit in that arena for 5.5, 6 hours every show, and I'm still not even sure if they know all the rules. Yeah, I'm still not even sure. But you know, they're just mesmerized by it. Yes. And you know, a little bit of it is like, who's cuter, Felipe Pino or Craig Jones? You know, a little of that. But
hey, that's that definitely is an important part of promoting the sport. Yeah. You know, having bankable stars. Yeah. So we're just going to keep trying to do that and turn it into a mainstream sport. So the answer to your question is, with the current size of the addressable universe to watch jiu-jitsu, it's probably not big enough to really make, you know, any kind of money. Right. Or in our case, you know, we lose a little bit. But, you know, the bet is to grow the sport. Yeah. And to be the category killer. Right. And you had some experience witnessing that or participating in it because you were the banker for the Fertitta brothers.
Yes, I was I was banker for the Fertittas when they owned a company called Station Casinos, which they still do. And then when they bought the UFC and financed them and watched that from the ground, I also was one of the partners in Bellator.
Oh,
yeah, ended up selling our stake to Viacom, which now owns 100% of it.
That's
So got to watch these things. So know how it works.
You know how it works. It's
Know how
really
it works.
Cool.
It's just MMA is just, let's face it, just today has a broader global appeal.
Yes.
It's an easier sport to understand. Somebody's describing, what are the rules of an MMA fight match. All I have to do is say the word fight, and I don't even think you have to say any more words. It's like, oh, I get it. You punch the guy, and
it's
when
extreme, totally explicit.
When he goes out,
you get what you see.
You win. I mean, so a jiu-jitsu match's a little bit harder. It's going to require a little bit more of an investment in understanding how it works. But that's our job. Every show we do, and we have it on our website, we have a 1 minute video, 1 minute and 11-second video called KASAI Rules Made Simple. And we have some music playing in the back, and we just show clips and we explain how you earn points in a match. And we show that in between every round. Yeah. Because, there's people there, and, we don't show it before the first round. We show it after the end of the first round. I can't tell you how many times I go, oh, that's why he got 2 points. Oh, that's what he did.
Right.
And as you know, Jordan, it's not that complicated.
Well, to the untrained eye.
To be a referee is complicated, but to follow what's going on.
Yes.
Even if you don't know what happened when the ref goes like this.
Yes.
Pretty much it's this, and he has the green armband on that side. You see that the guy has a green thing on his ankle. Then you'll realize that it must be the guy with the green got the 2 points.
Yeah. I think the most challenging thing, at least for my wife and some of my friends who have watched to understand, is the guard play. Is understanding that somebody can be dominating when they look like they're being dominated to the untrained eye. Yeah. That seems to me the thing that they just don't get.
Right. But I think some of the best athletes in the world are some of the jiu-jitsu players. They really are. And the thing that's what I would be most fulfilled if we can accomplish is the thing that makes me sad is watching some great athletes. I won't even mention any by name because some maybe it's a better fit than others, but go to MMA. So like some of the greatest jiu-jitsu players in the world will journey their way to MMA and they'll become mediocre MMA fighters. Right. Why? Because they've been training jiu-jitsu probably since they were a little kid and they just started learning to punch. Yeah. And they're always going to rely on their jiu-jitsu game, not their punching game. I mean, there's a few examples. Ryan Hall's an example. Yeah. He's played karate clearly his whole life. Yes. And he's been very successful in the MMA ring. But a lot of guys do it really because they're chasing the money. Right. And I wouldn't begrudge anybody that wants to make the transition from jiu-jitsu. Gary Tonin, geez, that guy's unbelievable.
He's unbelievable. He's one of my favorite athletes.
But sadly, there's some people that do MMA just because there's money. Yes. And the more we can do to make the sport not just a commercial success for promotions like KASAI, but a real way to earn a living for the practitioners, then if they go to MMA, it's because it was truly something they wanted to do, not just they did because they wanted to earn some dough. Yeah. And that's a shame.
Yeah. Well, one of the most notable person I could think of down that vein is Nick Rodriguez, who's had this like meteoric rise the past year, maybe even 6 months. And he's been on record saying many times that he doesn't think he's going to go to MMA because he's doing so well in jiu-jitsu. Between fights, super fights, seminars, the guy's making a living. And not only making a living, but he's becoming a star in the sport. Yeah. He just had a great showing at KASAI.
Oh my God. Was awesome.
So exciting.
Awesome. Yeah, it was just a shame because he got a little cheated out of a better outcome because he fought to a draw with Vinny Magalhaes, and that took Vinny out. Vinny got injured. It took him out for his next 2 matches. So on the scoreboard, Nick got a draw at 1 point, and the 2 guys that didn't even have to fight him because they got a bye got 2 points, and that point was the margin between Nick tying for first in the bracket and coming in second. So it was a shame, especially since Nick did so well.
Yeah, he really did
in the match.
Great job.
It was one of the most one-sided ties I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
But that's what's fun about KASAI. I mean,
I love that format. I love being able, the guys are going to go with multiple people, and they're going to get points, and it doesn't always going to work out, but you get to see a lot of exciting matches.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I would draw the distinction. Like, we waited for a long time we want to do it last, the heavyweight. Mm-hmm. So we had 8 killer heavyweights in that tournament. We even had a couple of injuries, but you know, even with that, we had 8 killer heavyweights. And with the 6-minute matches and the mandatory 3 fights, the winners will fight 4. They got the joke. You couldn't rest in your 6 minutes. Yeah. You had to go. And what happened? Unfortunately, Vinny got hurt. Cyborg cut his head open, and João Gabriel Rocha hurt his knee pretty bad. He was a trooper, man. He went right out there and still kept fighting. Yeah. But I hate to say it, but with our rule set and that kind of action, when guys weigh 250 pounds, you're probably more often than not you're going to see wounded warriors like that because there's no time to do that patty cake stalling. Yeah. I feel like a lot of times heavyweights do that because they're so big and they're so jacked that it's they gas the negative side. Yeah. You and I we know is you gas a little sooner when the more muscle mass you have. Yeah. So these 6-minute bouts were perfect. I remember talking to Nick before the tournament. He said like, this tournament is made for me. Yes. He called us to be on the card. He said it's made for me because you have to go all out for 6 minutes. Yeah. He said ADCC, it's great rule format. It's awesome, but the matches could last 20 minutes long. He said I can't. No marathon or sprints for 26 miles.
And,
right?
And that's his to his style. He doesn't have that slow technical throttling style. So he has that go.
So the track analogy is it's a 400-meter dash. Right. And you go all out, and then sometimes you see the guy come in like walking and screaming.
And you were a runner, talking about track. Did you run track when you were younger?
I did.
Yeah. And then you're
I had a hip injury, and that's how I found myself to John Danaher.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy. So I want to end on one thing. We brought it up before, but we kind of skirted around it. But it's an important essence that I'm trying to get to. A lot of young entrepreneurs come to me all the time, and one of the things that, especially young people, but it's not exclusively young people, is this question of time. They want to do things, but they never seem to have the time. And I always find the most successful people can fit the most in. Yeah. Just, can you talk about your time? Number one, you're very generous with your time. You give your time to a lot of different organizations, charity, teaching. How do you fit it all in?
I don't. So don't look in other people's yards. The grass is always greener. It's not. It's a continual struggle. Time is, I always think, the most valuable commodity. People think it's money. It's not. It's time. Absolutely. It's hard. And I kind of need my 7 at least hours a night of sleep too. So I think stealing it from sleep is not a good idea. No. So a couple things. You said something you well said. Whenever you're looking for the most important job to do, that you need to get done, maybe sometimes think about giving it to the guy or woman with the most to do, with the most on their plate. Yeah. Because sometimes high performing people can just figure it out. So I try to be like that, but it's hard. The other principle that I follow is I schedule time for myself. Think of it. Most people have jobs, and their days are accounted for, and it's just very hard. And then they're done and they're exhausted. It's very hard to take on other things unless you're blessed with something that provides you the hours and the flexibility to do it. For me, my job could be 24 hours every day if I let it. Right. So I try to be smart about it. I try to literally put on my calendar every day, try to fit in a period of time, an hour and a half, 2 hours, where I'm working out. Yeah. Or maybe I'm rehabbing, or I'm doing something, or I'm sleeping. Maybe schedule time to make sure you get to bed on time. It seems a little anal. For me, it's in the morning. So it makes me tired and it's tough, but I teach, as you know, Jordan, 6, it's more like 6:15, 6:30, but a 6-ish a.m. class 3 days a week. And on the other day, I usually train as well, and then I train Saturday and Sunday. So that's when I get my training, and I can still get to the office by 9. Yeah. If we're having a longer training session, maybe I get in 9:30 or 10. Yeah. But I could still get into the office by 9. I could still make an 8:30 meeting, if we do a more efficient class, and then I just run out the door. Yeah. So I fit it in. I just, you're not going to fit stuff in if jiu-jitsu just becomes the swing factor. Oh, if I have enough time, I'll go to that class. Oh, I know there's a 7:30 class over at Mushin or over wherever. If I can fit it in, I'll go.
Right.
Guess what? 9 times out of 10, you don't fit it in. And when you get a pattern of not fitting it in, then you quit.
That's right.
Because you start to stink. And people that started with you start getting better. And, you know, people ride you. They make you feel guilty. Hey, I haven't seen you. Hey, Jordan, good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah.
You know, and it just. So at Mushin, my gym, we a lot of the people are more white collar, you know, oriented. It's you know, banker, you know, lawyers, a lot of folks, and we just have a no guilt philosophy. If I don't see a guy for a month and he comes in, we'll say, "Hey, Bob, great to see you." You know, it's not like where have you been? There's no guilt.
Yeah.
You know, let them be the masters of their destiny. Let them learn. You know, what I think I've learned is making time for yourself. If jiu-jitsu is important to you, make time for it. If your work's important to you, make time for it. If your family's important to you, make time for it. Hopefully there's enough hours in a day that you can, you know, fit those things in.
Yeah. Well, I've had the great pleasure of learning from you many, many times, and watching the way that you operate is a real inspiration.
Thank you.
Fitting in as much as you do. I'm a young operator. I operate 2 businesses.
Jordan, don't sell yourself short. You fit in a lot of stuff yourself.
No, I do. I don't want to take it away. I make the time. You know, I really make sure that I schedule everything.
Not only that, you're great. You travel to other gyms. You get other perspectives on the sport.
Yeah.
That's a great, you know, I see that in you. You have the hunger, the passion to just really want to, you know, learn from, you know.
I love this. I really do. Talking about it, I made a very conscious effort to take my jiu-jitsu. The gym that I belong to is not very white collar. We have people, policemen, soldiers, firemen, sanitation. It's a wide cross section of people, but no networking capabilities. No, it wasn't a part of my life. I had my jiu-jitsu life, and then I had my life. And so about 1.5 years ago, I made a very conscious effort to bring these 2 things together. And it's been the most rewarding thing and the most rewarding part of my life. And I think that's what I see you've done by doing KASAI. You've taken your business life and you've meshed it. And I've had the great benefit of hearing you talk about the matchmaking just in your classes. You know, come in and it's like, oh, I've got this one. I'm working on this fight. I'm working on putting these 2 guys together. And there's so much excitement there.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Well, thank you for being a part of this project. It's probably going to take me a good 2 years to write this book.
All right. Good luck.
But this is the whole reason for this podcast is the research. Everything that we talked about today is going to inform the anecdotes that I'm going to tell from experiences in my own life, and then I hope to use the experiences of people that I talk to lend credibility to some of the things that I'm working on. If you have any advanced thinking past this, I'm working on leverage, how I use leverage in my business life, whether that's by building a really good team. I can only do so much, so I leverage the talents of my team, whether it's leveraging a property with debt, and making sure that I have the right debt.
Different kind of leverage.
Yeah. We bootstrapped my clothing business, my retail clothing business, and we were not bankable for the first 7 years of its existence. And only now, 10 years in, are we just starting to become bankable. The banks were closed, even though my father, as the chairman of the business, was willing to back it. They weren't interested in our segment. So now we're just becoming bankable. So leverage, risk is something I'm really interested in, taking risk, measuring risk, mitigating risk. Asymmetric risk is something that I've really become very passionate about. And so if there's any, if you think of any business philosophies that you find on the mat, please think of me.
Well, leverage is a great one. Empowering people to grow. I always think the best CEOs, or I say CEOs, but leader of any business or anything, are the people that are secure enough with themselves to train other people to put them out of a job.
Right. Isn't that the most hard? At every level of my
useful.
Every level of my organization, I try to teach that principle. There's a great book. It's called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. I don't know if you had the chance to read it. Jocko is a former Navy SEAL and a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt under Dean Lister. He's a crazy guy, and he's written a few books around that message.
Yeah. So in Jiu-Jitsu, same thing. I mean, it's funny when we teach. Some of the students are getting really good, and they'll say, hey, what about this? And, you know, I always, like the guys I have no respect for are the ones that say, no, you do it my way. Mm-hmm. You know, anytime somebody asks me, first of all, because there's so much I don't know, but they'll say, hey, look, I've been trying this hook grip instead of the grip you're talking about, and look how it works. And they'll explain that to me, you know, and then, you know, open your mind. I mean, maybe things will change.
It was amazing. I had my breath taken away on the mat today, listening to you and your normal crew of students have this open dialogue and a conversation on the things that you guys have been working on. And I'm here a fly on the wall just listening.
Yeah, that's great.
Wow. I mean, it's so
That's
cool.
great. Too bad you weren't here yesterday. We just did little grips of it today.
Yeah, well, you know, in the summertime, I'm out here more, and I love training with you guys. Such a good crew.
Yeah.
The Hamptons over here.
I love it.
High level.
And it's the Hamptons.
Good people. Yeah. It's pretty crazy.
That's no slouch being out on the beach either, right?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
For sure, Jordan. Thank you.
I really, really appreciate your time.